He was a powerful guy, but his heart was empty of love. Then this tiny little girl showed up asking for a hug, and bam, everything changed. His tough concrete world fell apart when he realized that was exactly what he needed too. If this beautiful story of love and growth touched you, don't forget to subscribe and tell us what city you're watching from. The heat of New Orleans embraced the night like a thick blanket when Ryan Anderson crossed the streets of the French Quarter. His footsteps echoed against the uneven cobblestones of the historic district, where the vibrant colors of colonial mansions blended with the pulsating life of the city. It was Thursday, almost midnight, and he had just left another meeting that had lasted for hours. As the executive director of one of the largest construction companies in the South, Ryan had a habit of walking the streets after tense meetings, searching for something to calm his restless mind that never seemed to rest. He wore an impeccable navy blue suit, despite the Louisiana heat, and carried the same serious expression he maintained during negotiations. At 38, Ryan had built a real estate empire that stretched across the entire southern coast. But that night, something deeply troubled him. The meeting had been about constructing a new luxury condominium, and he had spent hours discussing astronomical figures with men who, like him, seemed to have forgotten there was a world beyond numbers. He stopped in front of an artisanal ice cream stand that was still operating at that hour. The vendor, a black man with graying hair and a warm smile, greeted him with the typical friendliness of New Orleans locals. Ryan ordered a coconut ice cream, paying without exchanging many words, when he felt something lightly touch his leg. He looked down and saw a small girl, no more than 5 years old, with dark curly hair that danced in the wind. Her large expressive eyes looked at him with an intensity that completely disarmed him. The girl wore a faded pink dress, clearly inherited from another child, and mismatched flip-flops, one blue and one red. Despite the simplicity of her clothes, there was something in her gaze that radiated an impressive purity. It wasn't the look of someone asking for money, but of someone seeking something much deeper. Ryan prepared to do what he always did in these situations, take out a few bills from his wallet and continue on his way. But before he could move, she spoke. "Mister, can you give me a hug?" The voice was sweet and direct, without hesitation or shame. Ryan was paralyzed. In all his years of life, all the meetings, all the social gatherings, no one had ever asked him for something so simple yet so complex. He looked around searching for the child's guardians, but saw no one nearby. The girl remained there, patiently waiting for his answer, as if she had all the time in the world. "A hug?" Ryan repeated, more to himself than to her. The girl nodded, and a shy smile appeared on her lips. She explained with the naturalness of children that she saw other children receiving hugs from their parents in the square, and that she had always wanted to know what it was like to receive a real hug. Those words hit Ryan like lightning. He remembered himself at 5 years old, in the empty backyard of the mansion where he grew up, waiting for his father to return from yet another business trip. He remembered the nights he fell asleep alone, dreaming of the day when someone would hug him before bed. Without saying a word, Ryan knelt before the girl and opened his arms. She ran to him with a spontaneity that deeply moved him. The hug was long, warm, and Ryan felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, the sensation that he was exactly where he should be. The girl nestled against his chest as if she had known him for years, and he realized that his own hands were trembling slightly as he embraced her. "Thank you, mister. Now I know what it feels like." She pulled away with a radiant smile, and Ryan found himself smiling too, something that rarely happened outside of the professional environment. It was then that he heard a female voice calling, "Lily, Lily, where are you?" The urgency in the voice was evident, and soon a woman appeared running around the corner, carrying 2 shopping bags with a worried expression on her face. The woman was young, probably in her late 20s, with brown hair tied in a messy ponytail. She wore a simple white blouse and a long floral skirt, and even with the visible fatigue on her face, there was a natural beauty that caught attention. When she saw her daughter in the arms of a stranger, her expression became alert, but there was no panic. It was the look of someone who had lived enough to know that the world could be dangerous, but could also surprise. "Lily, what are you doing?" The woman approached with firm steps, and Ryan immediately stood up, extending his hands in a gesture of reassurance. Lily ran to her mother, excitedly telling her about the hug she had received, and Ryan saw the woman's expression gradually soften. She studied him for a moment, noting the expensive suit, the leather shoes, the watch that probably cost more than she earned in a year. "I'm Ryan," he introduced himself, extending his hand. "Your daughter just asked for a hug." She didn't want money, just a hug. The woman hesitated for a moment before accepting the handshake. "I'm Jessica," she said, and her voice had a musical tone that Ryan found captivating. "And this is Lily. I'm sorry if she bothered you, Mr. Ryan. Sometimes she's very spontaneous." Ryan shook his head, explaining that he didn't mind, that he was actually touched by the request. Jessica observed Ryan with curiosity. There was something in his eyes that didn't match the coldness that usually emanated from men in his social position. She noticed how he looked at Lily with a mixture of surprise and tenderness that seemed genuine. "We sell crafts over in the square," she explained, pointing to a small stand that was being dismantled by an older woman. "Lily likes to talk to people passing by. She always says everyone has an interesting story to tell." Ryan bought a vanilla ice cream for Lily, who accepted it with contagious joy. While the girl savored the treat, he talked briefly with Jessica about life in New Orleans, about her work in crafts, about how difficult it was to raise a daughter alone. There was a strength in Jessica that impressed Ryan, a quiet determination that he rarely encountered in his social circle. She didn't complain, didn't ask for anything, just told her story naturally. When it was time to say goodbye, Lily hugged Ryan again, and he felt the same warmth in his chest that he had experienced in their first encounter. "Will you come back tomorrow?" she asked with hope in her eyes. Ryan looked at Jessica, who averted her gaze with a shy smile. "Maybe," he answered, surprising himself with the sincerity of his own response. "Maybe I will." As he walked back to his apartment in the most upscale neighborhood of New Orleans, Ryan couldn't get the image of that hug out of his head. His apartment was a perfect reflection of his life, impeccable, modern, cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a stunning view of the bay, but that night all that beauty seemed empty to him. He remembered his last birthday, when he turned 38 alone, receiving only text messages and some expensive gifts from partners and collaborators. His father, Michael Anderson, owner of one of the largest civil construction companies in the country, had always been a distant man. Ryan had grown up in a luxurious mansion, but empty of affection. He remembered his 10th birthday, when he had waited all day for his father to return from a trip to celebrate together. Michael had arrived only at dinner time, briefly greeted his son and locked himself in his office to work. The gift was a generous bank transfer, but Ryan would have traded any amount of money for a sincere hug. That night, lying in his king-size bed, Ryan looked at the ceiling and wondered when was the last time someone had truly hugged him. He couldn't remember. He thought of Lily, of her bright eyes and the simplicity of her request. He thought of Jessica, of the quiet strength she radiated, of the way she had protected her daughter without being aggressive. For the first time in years, Ryan fell asleep thinking about something other than work, contracts, or money. The next day dawned with the typical New Orleans sun, hot and radiant. Ryan woke up with a strange feeling, as if something important was about to happen. Throughout the morning at the office, he caught himself looking out the window toward the historic district, remembering Lily's smile and the conversation with Jessica. His partners noticed that he seemed distant, less focused in meetings than usual. Ryan Anderson, the man who never let feelings interfere with business, was clearly with his mind elsewhere. At lunchtime, instead of going to the five-star restaurant where he usually ate, Ryan left the office and walked toward the French Quarter. He dressed more casually, trading the suit for a white dress shirt and jeans. He wanted to appear less intimidating, more accessible. When he reached the square where Jessica had set up her stand, he saw that she was organizing colorful bracelets on an improvised display while Lily was drawing in a recycled paper notebook. "Mr. Ryan," Lily shouted when she saw him approaching, dropping her colored pencil and running toward him. The nickname surprised and touched him at the same time. She hugged him with the same spontaneity as the day before, and Ryan felt again that sense of completeness that he couldn't explain. Jessica looked at him with surprise, but also with a smile that lit up her face. "You really came back," Jessica said, and there was a mixture of surprise and satisfaction in her voice. Ryan approached the stand, admiring the displayed works. There were bracelets made of colorful beads, necklaces of seeds, notebooks covered with floral fabrics, and small canvas paintings, all handmade, with a delicacy that contrasted with the rush of the corporate world he knew. "May I see what you're drawing?" Ryan asked Lily, who immediately showed her notebook with pride. The drawing was simple but touching. 3 human figures of different sizes, one tall, one medium, and one small, all holding hands under a yellow sun that had a heart in the center. "It's the family I want to have," Lily explained naturally. "Mommy, me, and, well, I don't know who the third one is yet, but he has to be nice and give hugs." Ryan felt something tighten in his chest. "And how do you know he'll give hugs?" he asked, genuinely curious. Lily laughed, a crystalline laugh that echoed through the square. "Because people who give hugs have different eyes. They get brighter when they hug, like yours yesterday." The child's sincerity completely disarmed Ryan. He looked at Jessica, who observed the interaction with a tender smile, but also with a certain caution. "Lily has a theory about people," Jessica explained, organizing some bracelets. "She says she can see who has a heart for hugging and who doesn't. So far, she's never been wrong." Ryan became interested in the conversation. "And how did she discover that?" Jessica stopped what she was doing and looked at her daughter with affection. "When she was younger, I used to take her to the park every Sunday. She would watch families and always asked me why some people hugged quickly and others hugged slowly. That's when she created this theory." Lily nodded energetically. "Quick hugs are hugs that don't want to stay. Slow hugs are hugs that want to live in the heart." Ryan was impressed by the child's wisdom. "And what kind of hug did I give you yesterday?" he asked, curious to know the answer. Lily thought for a moment, with the seriousness of someone analyzing an important question. "It was a slow hug, but with a little bit of rush at the beginning. I think you weren't used to giving real hugs." The observation was so accurate that Ryan laughed at himself. "You're right, I'm not used to it." He sat on the ground next to Lily, completely ignoring the fact that his expensive jeans could get dirty. "Could you teach me how to give better hugs?" The question came out naturally, and Ryan surprised himself with his own spontaneity. "Of course," Lily said, excited. "First, you have to think about something that makes you happy. Then you open your arms slowly, as if you're opening a window to your heart. And when you hug, you close your eyes and count to 10, thinking that you want the person to feel safe." Ryan followed the instructions, and when he hugged Lily again, this time following her method, he felt the difference. It was a deeper, truer hug. Jessica watched everything with a smile that mixed amusement and emotion. There was something special about the way Ryan interacted with her daughter, a patience and tenderness she didn't expect to find in a man clearly accustomed to the business world. "Do you have children?" she asked, though she already knew the answer by the way he behaved. "No," Ryan answered, still hugging Lily. "I never did. I always thought I wouldn't be good at it." Lily pulled away and looked at him seriously. "But you are good. You have gentle hands." Ryan looked at his own hands, which had always seemed more suited for signing contracts than offering affection. "Gentle hands?" he repeated. "Yes. When you hug me, your hands don't get stiff. They get soft, like they're made of cotton," Lily demonstrated, hugging a teddy bear that was in her backpack. "See? Just like this." Ryan found himself learning about affection from a 5-year-old child, and the irony of the situation wasn't lost on him. He, who commanded hundreds of employees and moved millions of dollars, was discovering something fundamental about being human. "Would you like to have lunch with us?" Jessica asked, hesitant. "It's nothing fancy, just a meal at the diner on the corner," but Ryan interrupted her before she could finish. "I'd love to." The response came without hesitation, and Jessica smiled, surprised by his sincerity. She began to pack up the stand materials, and Ryan automatically helped, carrying the heavier boxes. The restaurant was simple, with formica tables and plastic chairs, but the food was delicious. Ryan ordered the same dish as Jessica, grilled, fish with rice and beans, and ate with more pleasure than he had felt in years at the sophisticated restaurants he frequented. Lily told stories about school, about her friends, about the drawings she made. It was light, natural conversation, without the tensions and strategies that permeated all of Ryan's social interactions. "What do you do for work?" Jessica asked, though she already had an idea from the way he dressed and behaved. Ryan hesitated for a moment. "I'm a businessman. I work in construction." He decided not to go into details about the size of his company. He didn't want that, to change the natural dynamic that was developing between them. "That must be interesting," Jessica commented. "Building things, creating spaces for people to live." Tasta. Ryan had never thought of his work that way. For him, it had always been about profit, about conquering markets, about overcoming competition. "And you? How did you start with crafts?" he asked, genuinely interested. Jessica's face lit up. "I studied fine arts in college. I always wanted to be a children's book illustrator, but life happened and I needed to find a way to support Lily." There was a hint of melancholy in her voice, but also a serene acceptance. "Crafts allow me to be creative and still make money. It's not what I dreamed of, but it has its beauty." "And Lily's father?" Ryan asked, and immediately realized that perhaps he had been indiscreet. Jessica was silent for a moment, stirring the rice with her fork. "He left us when she was 2 years old, said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he needed to live his life. Since then, it's just been the two of us." There was no bitterness in her voice, just a resigned sadness. Lily, who had finished eating and was coloring in her notebook, raised her head. "But it's okay, Mr. Ryan. Mommy says sometimes people leave because they don't know how to stay. But one day someone will come who knows how to stay." The child's wisdom surprised Ryan again. He looked at Jessica, who smiled sadly. "She's right," Jessica said. "I teach Lily that not all people are ready for the love she has to give, but that doesn't mean she should stop offering it." Ryan was touched by these words. He thought about how many times he himself had closed off to relationships, always afraid of disappointing or being disappointed. After lunch, they returned to the stand. Ryan spent the rest of the afternoon there, watching Jessica work, playing with Lily, talking about various subjects. He felt more relaxed than he had in years. When the sun began to set, painting the New Orleans sky with shades of orange and pink, he realized he didn't want to leave. "Can I come back tomorrow?" he asked, and this time there was no hesitation in his voice. Jessica looked at him with an expression he couldn't completely decipher. "Are you sure? Won't you get tired of our simple life?" Ryan shook his head. "Simple is the last word I would use to describe this. You two are the most interesting people I've met in years." Lily clapped, excited. "That means you'll see my rock collection tomorrow. I find special rocks on the beach." "And keep all of them." Ryan smiled, imagining what it would be like to spend another day in this world he was discovering. "I'd love to see your rock collection." When it was time to say goodbye, Lily made her favorite drawing again, the 3 figures under the sun, but this time she wrote names underneath: Mommy, me, and Mr. Ryan. Ryan was moved to see his name in the drawing, included in the family the girl dreamed of having. "Can I keep it?" he asked. Lily nodded cheerfully and tore the page from the notebook to give to him. That night, Ryan arrived home with the drawing in his hands and stuck it on the refrigerator, something he had never done before. He looked at the colorful paper contrasting with the stainless steel of the modern kitchen and felt that something was changing inside him. He called his assistant and cancelled some appointments for the following week. For the first time in years, he wanted time for something beyond work. Before going to sleep, Ryan looked at the drawing again. He thought about the family he never had, the hugs he never received, the loneliness he had always accepted as a natural part of his life. Lily and Jessica were showing him that there was a different way to live, a more colorful and warmer way. And for the first time, he allowed himself to imagine what it would be like to be part of that drawing, not just on paper, but in real life. The phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was his father, Michael, calling to talk about a new company project. The conversation was brief and objective, as they always were. When he hung up, Ryan realized that his father had never asked how he was, if he needed anything, if he was happy. It was always work, always business, always the next corporate conquest. Ryan fell asleep that night, thinking about how different it would be if he had grown up in a family like the one Lily drew, a family where hugs were given for pleasure, not out of obligation, a family where people stayed because they wanted to, not because it was convenient. And for the first time in his adult life, he allowed himself to dream of the possibility of having this for himself. The following days transformed into a new routine for Ryan. Every morning, he woke up eager for the time to meet Jessica and Lily in the French Quarter. He changed his meeting schedule to the morning, freeing up the afternoons to spend with them. His partners began to notice the change, but Ryan didn't care. For the first time in his life, he had found something more important than closing deals. Lily had affectionately dubbed him Uncle. Ryan, a nickname he wore with pride. She showed him her rock collection, each with a special story. The rock that shined like a star, the rock that looked like a heart, the rock that was as blue as the sea. Ryan listened to each story with attention, surprised by the child's imagination and by the way she found magic in the simplest things. Jessica, in turn, began to feel more comfortable with Ryan's constant presence. She noticed how he genuinely took interest in Lily's stories, how he helped organize the stand without being asked, how he brought fresh fruit and children's books without seeming condescending. There was a simplicity in his gestures that contrasted with the sophistication of his appearance. "You don't need to bring presents every time," Jessica said one afternoon, while Lily excitedly flipped through a new fairy tale book. "Your company is enough." Ryan stopped organizing the bracelets he was helping to arrange. "It's just that I never knew how to show affection without giving presents," he confessed. "My father was always like that. When I was a child, instead of spending time with me, he bought me things." Jessica studied him carefully. "And how did you feel about that?" Ryan was silent for a moment, reflecting. "Empty," he finally answered. "I had everything a child could want, but I felt empty, because what I wanted most was for him to play with me, to talk to me, to hug me." He smiled sadly. "I think that's why Lily's request touched me so much. She asked for exactly what I always wanted and never received." "Then you understand why she makes those drawings," Jessica said softly. "She also knows what it's like to miss someone." Ryan looked at Lily, who was showing the book illustrations to a teddy bear, pretending she was reading to it. "Does she talk about her father?" he asked. "Sometimes," Jessica replied, lowering her voice. "She asks if he'll come back, if it was because she did something wrong. I always tell her it wasn't her fault, that sometimes people leave our lives because they can't stay, not because they don't deserve love." Jessica paused, observing her daughter. "But I know she misses having a father figure. That's why she gets so attached to men who are kind to her." Ryan felt a weight in his chest. "Do you think she's attached to me because of that?" Jessica looked him directly in the eyes. "Partially, yes, but also because you're genuinely caring. With her, Lily has a very good radar for detecting fake people. If she's attached to you, it's because she saw something real in you." Jessica's words brought both relief and responsibility to Ryan. That afternoon, it began to rain, one of those intense tropical rains that transform streets into rivers. Jessica and Lily ran to take shelter under a store awning, but their products got soaked. Ryan helped them collect everything, putting the wet pieces in plastic bags. "We won't sell anything today," Jessica said with a resigned sigh. "At least we didn't lose everything." "Come to my place," Ryan suggested impulsively. "You can dry the pieces there, and we'll wait for the rain to pass." Jessica hesitated. "We don't want to impose—" "You're not imposing," he interrupted her. "Please, let me give back at least a little of the kindness you've shown me." Jessica looked at Lily, who was visibly uncomfortable in her wet clothes, and agreed. Ryan's apartment was exactly as Jessica had imagined, modern, impeccable, with an impressive view of the bay, but it was also cold, impersonal, like a showroom. Lily was impressed by the size of the place. "Uncle Ryan, do you live alone in this giant house?" she asked, looking around curiously. "Yes, I've always lived alone," Ryan replied, and for the first time that statement sounded sad to him. Jessica spread out the craft pieces to dry, while Ryan lent them some of his shirts so they could change clothes. Lily looked adorable in a white dress shirt that went down to her ankles, and Jessica, even in a man's shirt, maintained her natural beauty. Ryan prepared hot chocolate for everyone, a skill he had learned years ago but never had the opportunity to use. "Your home is very beautiful," Jessica commented, observing the designer furniture and abstract paintings on the walls. "But it doesn't have children's drawings on the refrigerator." Ryan laughed. "Yes, it does. I put up the drawing Lily gave me." He took them to the kitchen, where the colorful drawing contrasted with the rest of the minimalist decor. Lily was ecstatic to see her drawing displayed. "You really kept it," she exclaimed, hugging Ryan's legs. "Of course I kept it. It's the first drawing anyone has ever made for me." The confession came out naturally, and Ryan realized he was being more open with them than he had ever been with anyone else. While they waited for the rain to diminish, Lily explored the apartment with the typical curiosity of children. She discovered that Ryan had a huge library, but there were no children's books. "Don't you read stories?" she asked, surprised. "No, I only read business books and biographies," Ryan explained. "But now that you've given me storybooks, I can learn." "Would you like me to read you a story?" Lily offered, picking up the fairy tale book Ryan had brought. "You would read to me?" Ryan felt touched by the offer. "I would love that." They sat on the couch, and Lily began to read. Actually, she knew the stories by heart and was making up parts, but she did it with such conviction that Ryan was enchanted. Jessica observed them from across the room, feeling a mixture of emotions. It was beautiful to see Lily so at ease with Ryan, but also worrying. She had already gone through the experience of seeing her daughter get attached to someone who later disappeared. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. "I am," Jessica replied, but without much conviction. "It's just that Lily gets attached to people easily, and when they leave our lives, she suffers a lot." Ryan understood the underlying concern. "Do you think I'm going to leave your lives?" Jessica didn't respond immediately, but her silence was eloquent. "Jessica, I know you haven't known me for very long," Ryan said, approaching her, "but I've never felt so complete as I feel when I'm with you. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but it's as if I found something I didn't even know I was looking for." He paused, observing Lily, who had fallen asleep on the couch with the book in her lap. "I don't want to leave your lives. I want to be part of them, if you'll let." Jessica felt her heart race. "Ryan, you have a completely different life from ours. You're successful, you have responsibilities, a whole world of opportunities. Why would you want to be tied down to two people like us?" The question revealed her deepest insecurities. "Tied down?" Ryan repeated, surprised. "Jessica, you're not a prison, you're freedom. For the first time in my life, I feel free to be myself, to not have to impress anyone, to not have to prove anything." He sat next to her on the couch. "My whole life has been about achievements, about being better than my father, about building an empire. But when I'm with you, I can simply be Ryan, not the businessman, not Michael Anderson's son, just Ryan." Ryan's words touched Jessica deeply. She had built walls around her heart to protect herself and Lily from more disappointments. "I'm afraid," she confessed. "Afraid of believing you'll stay and then finding out I was wrong. Afraid that Lily will get even more attached and then end up heartbroken." Tears began to roll down her face. Ryan moved closer, gently taking her hands. "I understand your fear. I'm afraid too. Afraid of not being good enough for you. Afraid of not knowing how to be part of a family. Afraid of messing everything up." He looked at Lily, who was sleeping peacefully. "But what I feel for you two is real. And I want to try, even though I'm afraid." The rain had stopped, but none of the three seemed in a hurry to leave. Jessica looked at Ryan, seeing for the first time the vulnerability behind the facade of a successful executive. "You know our life is simple," she said. "We don't have money for expensive restaurants, trips, things you must be used to." Jessica, the most delicious lunch I've had in recent years was that meal we shared at the diner on the corner. The most fun afternoon I've had was listening to Lily tell stories about rocks. I don't need expensive things, I need real things. Ryan squeezed her hands. And you two are the most real thing I've ever found. Lily stirred on the couch, waking up slowly. Uncle Ryan, are you going to sleep here tonight? She asked, still drowsy. Ryan looked at Jessica, who smiled shyly. No, my princess. You're going home, and I'm going to sleep here. But tomorrow, I'll come back to the square, okay? Lily nodded, satisfied with the answer. When Ryan drove them home, Jessica saw that he drove carefully, as if he were carrying the most precious treasure in the world. He accompanied them to the door of the small apartment where they lived, in a working class, a neighborhood of New Orleans. It was simple but clean and cozy, with plants in the window and Lily's drawings stuck on the walls. Thank you for today, Jessica said, standing at the door, for sheltering us from the rain, for being so kind to Lily, for... She hesitated. For being genuine. Ryan smiled, and she noticed how his smile was different from what she imagined would be the smile of a successful businessman. It was shy, almost childlike. Thank you for letting me be part of your day, he replied. I know we still have a lot to talk about, a lot to discover about each other. But I want you to know that what I feel isn't pity or charity. It's gratitude. You've given me something I didn't know I needed. He kissed Lily's forehead, who was in her mother's arms, and then, hesitantly, kissed Jessica's forehead too. That night, Ryan returned to his empty apartment, but for the first time he didn't feel lonely. He felt hopeful. He looked at the drawing on the refrigerator and imagined what it would be like to wake up every day hearing laughter, what it would be like to have someone to share meals with, what it would be like to have a real family. He knew it wouldn't be easy, that he would have to learn many things, but for the first time in his life, he was willing to try something that went beyond professional success. The following weeks brought a routine that Ryan never imagined could exist in his life. He became part of Jessica and Lily's daily life naturally, as if he had always belonged to that world. He began to understand the small rituals that made that family something special. The shared breakfast before going to the square, the stories told before bed, the drawings stuck on the refrigerator like trophies of love. Lily had created the habit of making a new drawing for Ryan every day. They were always variations on the same theme, the family of three, but each with different details. Sometimes she drew a house with a garden, other times a beach, other times simply the three figures embracing. Ryan religiously kept all the drawings, creating a special folder he called Lily's Collection. You know your house is turning into a museum of children's art, Jessica laughed one afternoon, observing the number of drawings Ryan had stuck on the walls of the apartment. And I couldn't be more proud of that, he replied, admiring a drawing where Lily had depicted the three of them eating ice cream. For the first time, my house feels like a home. Ryan had begun to experience being a father without having an instruction manual. He learned to braid Lily's hair, even if the result was crooked. He discovered that children's stories were much more complex than he imagined, especially when Lily asked questions about the characters he had never considered. Why didn't Cinderella talk to her father about how mean her stepmother was a question that left him reflecting for hours. Jessica observed these interactions with a mixture of joy and surprise. Ryan had infinite patience with Lily, even when she was cranky or when her questions were repetitive. She saw how he strived to understand the world through the child's eyes, as if he were rediscovering his own lost childhood. Have you ever thought about having children? Jessica asked one night, as they prepared dinner together in her kitchen. Lily was in the bedroom playing with her toys, and they had a rare moment of conversation without interruptions. Ryan stopped cutting the vegetables and became thoughtful. I always thought I wouldn't be a good father, he confessed. My father never taught me how to be one. He gave me money, education, opportunities, but he never taught me how to love someone unconditionally. Ryan looked at Jessica. But Lily is teaching me that. She loves me simply because I give her hugs, because I listen to her stories, because I show up. It's so simple and so pure. Jessica approached him, gently touching his arm. You know you're being a father to her, don't you? She talks about you at school, draws you in all her assignments, tells her friends about Uncle Ryan who reads stories and knows how to braid hair. Ryan felt his heart race. And how do you feel about that? Scared, Jessica answered honestly. Not because you're not wonderful with her, but because I see how she's getting attached. If you decide this life isn't for you, it will be devastating for her. Ryan stopped what he was doing and turned to look at Jessica directly. Jessica, I need you to understand something. I'm not here experimenting with being a father. I'm here because I found my family. He held her hands. I know it seems crazy because we've known each other for just a few weeks, but I've never felt so certain about anything in my life. I love Lily as if she were my daughter, and He hesitated. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air for a moment. Jessica felt tears beginning to form in her eyes. Ryan, I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. But I'm so afraid to believe this is real that you won't wake up one day and realize you've made a mistake. Do you want to know what the biggest mistake of my life was? Ryan asked, moving closer. It was spending 38 years without knowing you. It was building an entire life based on material achievements, when what I really wanted was this, a family, a home, people who loved me not for what I have, but for who I am. At that moment, Lily appeared in the kitchen carrying a new drawing. Look what I made, she said, showing a sheet where she had drawn a house with 3 windows, each with a smiling face. This is our dream house. It has a room for Mommy, one for me and one for Uncle Ryan. She looked at the two, noticing the emotional expressions. Are you okay? We're great, my princess, Ryan said, kneeling down to her height. That drawing is beautiful. Can I ask a question? Lily nodded. Would you like it if I lived with you for real? Lily's eyes lit up like fireworks. You really want to? She asked, barely able to contain her excitement. Very much, Ryan replied, but first I need to talk to Mommy, okay? Lily nodded energetically and ran to hug Jessica's legs. Mommy, will you let Uncle Ryan live with us? Jessica looked at Ryan, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, the hope mixed with vulnerability. We'll talk about it, my darling. But first, how about you help me set the table? Lily ran off to get the plates, leaving Ryan and Jessica alone again. Are you sure? Jessica asked. You know we can't offer the luxury you're used to. Our life is simple, sometimes difficult. Would you be happy living in a small apartment, sharing a bathroom, eating rice and beans every day? Ryan smiled, and Jessica noticed it was a different smile, lighter, more genuine. Jessica, I already live in a huge apartment and feel claustrophobic. I eat at expensive restaurants, and the food has no taste. I sleep in a king-size bed and spend the night awake, thinking about how lonely I feel. He moved closer to her. Here, eating rice and beans, I feel nourished. Here, listening to Lily tell stories, I feel entertained. Here, beside you, I feel at home. During dinner, Ryan observed the natural dynamic between mother and daughter. Jessica automatically cut the food for Lily, cleaned her face with care, answered the endless questions with patience. Lily, in turn, told about her day at school, showed the drawings she had made, asked to be held when she was tired. It was a perfect dance of everyday love. Uncle Ryan, do you know how to make pancakes? Lily asked out of nowhere. No, but I can learn, he replied. Why? Because Sunday is pancake day at our house. If you're going to live here, you need to know how to make them. Ryan laughed, imagining himself in an apron, trying to flip pancakes. Then I'll need lessons. I can teach you, Jessica offered. But I warn you that the first ones always burn. It's a tradition in our family. Ryan liked the sound of the word tradition. He had never had family traditions, only obligatory social events and business dinners. After dinner, Ryan helped bathe Lily and put her to bed. The child insisted that he read a story, and he chose a tale about a dragon who learned to be gentle. Just like you, Uncle Ryan, Lily commented sleepily. Were you also a dragon who learned to be gentle? Maybe, Ryan replied, touched by the comparison. But you and your mummy taught me that it's better to be gentle than to be strong. Lily smiled and closed her eyes. Good night, Uncle Ryan. Dream about our dream house. Ryan kissed her forehead and whispered, Good night, my princess. When they returned to the living room, Jessica was organizing Lily's drawings that were scattered on the table. She talks about you all the time, she said without looking at him. To her teachers, to her friends, to anyone who will listen. My Uncle Ryan this, my Uncle Ryan that. She's never talked about someone like this before. And how do you feel knowing that? Ryan asked, sitting next to her on the small couch. Happy and terrified at the same time, Jessica confessed. Happy because I see how she's flourishing with your presence. Terrified because I know that if you leave, it will be impossible to explain to her why the people we love sometimes leave us. Ryan took Jessica's hands in his. I'm not going to leave. I know it's hard to believe because you've been abandoned before. I know words are easy to say and hard to keep, but I'll prove to you day by day that when I say I want to stay, it's because I want to stay forever. Jessica looked at him, seeing the determination in his eyes. How can you be so sure? You don't even know me that well. You don't know what I'm like when I'm stressed, when I'm sad, when I'm impossible to live with. Ryan smiled. And you don't know what I'm like when I have to work late, when I'm worried about business, when I'm nervous. But I want to find out. I want to know all your sides, even the difficult ones. You know I'll never have money to contribute to luxuries, Jessica said, expressing an insecurity that bothered her. You know I'll always be the woman who sells crafts in the square, who wears simple clothes, who doesn't frequent the places you frequent. Ryan interrupted her with a soft kiss, their first kiss. Jessica, I don't want you to change anything. I want to learn to make crafts with you. I want to sell bracelets in the square by your side. I want to wear simple clothes and eat at diners. He caressed her face. I want to be part of your life, not transform it into mine. That night, Ryan returned to his apartment for the last time as a single man. He looked around, seeing all the symbols of success he had accumulated over the years, the expensive artwork, the designer furniture, the photos of social events where he smiled without joy. None of that represented him anymore. He was now the man who knew how to make crooked braids, who kept children's drawings like treasures, who preferred hugs to handshakes. He began to separate the things he would take to his new life. There weren't many, some clothes, important books, objects with sentimental value. The rest he would donate or sell. He didn't need so much space, didn't need so many things. He only needed love, and that he had found in a square in New Orleans, in the hug of a child who asked for what he had always wanted to receive. Ryan slept that night, dreaming of burnt pancakes, of drawings stuck on the refrigerator, of a small house that would be bigger than any mansion, because it would be full of love. He was ready to start a new life, a life where being rich meant having a family, where success meant making a child smile, where being at home meant being in the arms of people who loved him, not for what he had, but for who he was. The day Ryan moved into Jessica and Lily's apartment dawned with a radiant sun typical of New Orleans. It was a Saturday, and Lily had woken up earlier than usual, eager to help officially welcome Uncle Ryan home. She had prepared a surprise, a giant drawing that covered half the wall of the room that would be his, showing the three of them in a colorful house surrounded by flowers and hearts. Uncle Ryan, are you going to sleep here forever? Lily asked for the 10th time that morning, while helping him unpack his few things. Ryan laughed, picking her up. Forever is a very long time, my princess, but I'll sleep here for as long as you and your mommy want me to stay. Lily made a face. I want you to stay forever and a little bit more. Jessica observed the scene from the doorway, feeling a mixture of joy and nervousness. It was surreal to see Ryan, the man who weeks ago was a complete stranger, putting his clothes in the wardrobe she had emptied for him, placing his books on the shelf next to Lily's coloring books. It seemed both natural and frightening at the same time. Are you having regrets? Ryan asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Jessica shook her head. Not regrets, just adjusting to reality. It still feels like a dream. Ryan approached her, leaving Lily organizing her colored pencils on the table. It feels like a dream to me too, but it's the kind of dream I never want to wake up from. The first week of living together was a constant discovery. Ryan learned that Jessica sang in the shower, that Lily talked in her sleep, that the two had a habit of dancing in the kitchen while preparing breakfast. Jessica discovered that Ryan had insomnia, that he worked better in the early morning, that he made coffee too strong and always forgot to close the toothpaste. "You're adapting well," Jessica commented one morning, while watching Ryan trying to make 2 braids in Lily's hair. "Even with our strange habits," Ryan smiled, concentrating on not letting the strands escape. "Your habits aren't strange, they're unique, and I'm learning to love each one of them." Lily had created a new routine that included Ryan in everything. She insisted that he take her to school, that he watch her favorite cartoons, that he participate in the games she invented. Ryan adapted naturally, as if he had been a father his entire life. But sometimes Jessica caught him observing Lily with a melancholic expression, as if remembering something painful. "Are you okay?" she asked one night, finding Ryan on the small balcony of the apartment, looking at the stars. "Just thinking," he replied, pulling her to sit beside him. "Thinking about how my life could have been different if my father had given me what I'm giving to Lily." Jessica took his hand. "But you are giving it. And that's what matters." "Sometimes I'm afraid I'm not good enough," Ryan confessed. "Afraid that I don't know how to be a father because I never had an example. Afraid that I'll make the same mistakes my father made with me." Jessica turned to look at him. "Ryan, do you know what the difference is between you and your father?" He shook his head. "You're here. You choose to be here every day. You listen to Lily, you play with her, you hug her. You're already the father she needs." That week, Ryan received a phone call that would change everything. It was his father, Michael, calling to inform him that he was coming to New Orleans for a business meeting and would like to have dinner with his son. Ryan became tense. He still hadn't told his father about his new life, about Jessica and Lily, not out of shame, but because he knew Michael wouldn't understand. "Are you going to tell him about us?" Jessica asked, noticing Ryan's nervousness after the call. "Yes," he replied, but there was hesitation in his voice. "It's just that my father has very strong opinions about everything. He won't understand why I left my luxury apartment to live here. He won't understand why I fell in love with a woman who sells crafts in the square." "And does that matter?" Jessica asked, though she knew the answer mattered more to her than she would like to admit. Ryan took her hands. "No, it doesn't matter. My life is my own, and I choose you. I'll always choose you." But Jessica saw the doubt in his eyes, and that worried her. The dinner with Michael was set for the most expensive restaurant in the city. Ryan arrived nervous, wearing a suit he hadn't worn in weeks. Michael Anderson was an imposing man, 65 years old, with perfectly combed grey hair and a cold look that analyzed everything as if calculating its value. He greeted his son with a formal handshake, as if greeting a partner. "You have an interesting appearance," Michael commented, noticing that Ryan looked more relaxed, less tense than usual. "Are you taking good care of yourself?" Ryan nodded. "I'm fine, Dad. Better than I've been in years." Michael ordered the most expensive wine on the menu without consulting his son, a habit Ryan had always detested. The conversation began with the usual topics: business, the real estate market, new projects. Michael spoke with his usual enthusiasm about expansion, profits, achievements. Ryan listened patiently, but his mind was at home, imagining Jessica helping Lily with homework, imagining the girls' laughter echoing through the small apartment. "You seem distracted," Michael observed, cutting the grilled salmon. "Is everything all right with the company?" Ryan hesitated for a moment. "The company is fine, Dad. I'm the one who's different." Michael raised an eyebrow. "Different how?" Ryan took a deep breath. "I met someone." "Someone?" Michael repeated, interested. "A woman. About time, Ryan. You need someone appropriate by your side, someone who can help you in business, who understands our world." Ryan felt his stomach twist. "It's not quite like that, Dad. She's different from the women you imagine for me." Michael leaned forward, curious. "Different how? Does she have family? What does she do? What's her name?" Ryan knew the moment of truth had arrived. "Her name is Jessica. She's an artisan, sells crafts in the square, and she has a 5-year-old daughter, Lily. The silence that followed was deafening. Artisan? Michael repeated, as if the word had a bitter taste. Ryan, are you telling me you've gotten involved with a woman who sells trinkets on the street and who has a child from another man? The disapproval in his voice was clear. Dad, it's not like that. Jessica is an amazing woman, and Lily is a wonderful child. They make me happy. Happy? Michael let out a humorless laugh. Ryan, you're the heir to an empire. You have responsibilities, a name to uphold. You can't lower yourself to this kind of adventure. The word adventure hit Ryan like a slap. It's not an adventure, Dad. I moved into their home. I want to marry Jessica and adopt Lily. Michael's face turned red. You did what? Ryan, have you completely lost your mind? You abandoned your apartment, your life, for a woman who is probably only interested in your money. Ryan felt anger growing inside him. She doesn't even know how much money I have. She's never asked me for anything. Never wanted anything but my presence. Of course she knows, Michael insisted. Women like her always know. She hooked you with this story of an orphaned child, manipulated you into feeling needed. His father's words were like poison. Dad, you don't know Jessica. You have no right to talk about her like that. I know women like her, Michael continued, relentless. They take advantage of successful men, use their children as bait, make you feel like heroes, and when they get what they want, they show their true faces. Ryan stood up from the table, trembling with anger. Enough, Dad. You don't know what you're talking about. Michael also stood up, his voice becoming harder. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I built all this for you. Ryan, everything you have, everything you are was because of my work. And now you want to throw it all away because of some random woman and a child who isn't even yours. Some random woman, Ryan repeated, incredulous. Dad, Jessica is the most principled woman I've ever met. And Lily is more my daughter than I ever was your son. The phrase came out before he could stop it, and he saw how it hit Michael squarely. How dare you? Michael hissed. I gave you everything, education, opportunities, a thriving company. I worked day and night to build this for you. Ryan faced him, and for the first time in his life, he wasn't intimidated by his father's gaze. You gave me everything except the one thing I needed, a father. I was the best father I could be, Michael defended himself. I made sure. You never wanted for anything, that you had the best schools, the best contacts. Ryan shook his head. Dad, you gave me money when I needed hugs. You gave me presents when I needed presents. You built an empire, but you didn't build a family. Michael was silent for a moment, as if processing his son's words. Ryan, you're making a mistake you'll regret for the rest of your life. This woman will use you, will spend your money, and when you no longer serve a purpose, she'll leave you. The conviction in his voice was absolute. Dad, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer honestly, Ryan said, composing himself. When was the last time you hugged me? When was the last time you told me you loved me? When was the last time you showed interest in my happiness, not my professional success? Michael was disconcerted, without an answer. I'm not good with displays of affection, Michael admitted reluctantly. But that doesn't mean I don't care, I just care differently. Ryan felt a twinge of pity for his father. Dad, I know you care, but I needed you to show it. And now it's too late. It's not too late, Michael said, and for the first time his voice sounded vulnerable. You're still my son. We can try. Ryan looked at him, seeing a glimpse of the man behind the mask of the successful businessman. We can try, Dad, but you need to accept that my life includes Jessica and Lily. They are not negotiable. Michael took a deep breath, clearly fighting against his prejudices. I need to meet them, he finally said. If they're so important to you, I need to meet them. Ryan felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. You would do that? You would come to dinner with us at home? At home? Michael repeated, as if the idea of dining in a simple apartment was alien to him. Yes, Dad, at our home, where I live now, where I'm happy. Michael nodded slowly. All right, I'll come. Ryan returned home with his heart racing. He found Jessica in the kitchen preparing dinner, and Lily on the living room floor drawing. The domestic scene immediately reassured him. "How did it go?" Jessica asked, noticing his tense expression. "Complicated," Ryan replied. "But he wants to meet you. He's coming to dinner here tomorrow." Jessica stopped stirring the food. "He's coming here? Ryan, are you sure this is a good idea?" Ryan approached her, hugging her from behind. "I'm not sure of anything, but I know that if he wants to be part of my life, he needs to accept you. And if he can't, then the choice is made." "What if he's right?" Jessica asked quietly. "What if I'm really not good for you? What if our social difference is too great?" Ryan turned her to face him. "Jessica, are you doubting us?" She averted her gaze. "I don't know. Maybe I'm being selfish, preventing you from having the life you deserve." "The life I deserve is this one," Ryan said firmly. "Here, with you, with Lily. I don't want anything else." But Jessica saw the doubt in his eyes, the same doubt she felt. The words of Ryan's father had planted a seed of insecurity that was beginning to grow. That night, Lily noticed the tension in the air. "Uncle Ryan, are you sad?" she asked, climbing onto his lap. "I'm not sad, Princess, just thoughtful." Lily touched his face. "You're making a worried face, like Mommy when she thinks there won't be enough money for groceries." Lily's innocent observation made Ryan realize how transparent his concerns were. "Lily, do you love me even knowing I'm not?" "Your real dad?" The question came out before he could control it. Lily looked at him with that seriousness she sometimes showed. "Uncle Ryan, do you know what a real dad is?" she asked. Ryan shook his head. "It's someone who stays. It's someone who doesn't leave when you throw a tantrum. It's someone who hugs you when you're scared. It's someone who reads stories even when they're tired." She hugged him. "You're my real dad even though I didn't come from your tummy." Lily's words touched Ryan deeply. He hugged her tightly, feeling tears in his eyes. "Thank you, my princess. Thank you for letting me be your dad." Jessica observed the scene from the kitchen, also with tears in her eyes. Regardless of what happened with Michael, she knew Ryan genuinely loved Lily. The next morning, Ryan woke up early and found Jessica already in the kitchen, preparing ingredients for dinner. "Did you sleep well?" he asked, noticing the dark circles under her eyes. "Not really," she admitted. "I'm nervous. What if your dad hates me? What if he thinks I'm not good enough for you?" "Jessica, my dad may have many opinions, but the only opinion that matters is mine," Ryan said, hugging her. "And I've already chosen. I chose you, I chose Lily, I chose our family." Jessica nestled against him. "I just want you to be happy. Ryan, even if that means you need to choose a different life." "Are you asking me to leave?" Ryan asked, surprised. "No," Jessica quickly replied. "I'm saying that if you decide your previous life was better, I'll understand. I won't hold you back." Ryan made her look at him. "Jessica, you're not holding me back. You're setting me free." The day passed quickly, with Ryan and Jessica preparing the house to receive Michael. Lily was excited about the visit, without fully understanding the tension that hung in the air. She had made a special drawing for Uncle Ryan's grandpa, as she had begun to call him. When Michael arrived, punctually at 7 in the evening, Ryan opened the door with his heart racing. His father was impeccably dressed as always, but seemed uncomfortable. He looked around the simple apartment, noticing the drawings on the walls, the inexpensive furniture, the simplicity of everything. "Dad, this is Jessica," Ryan said, introducing the woman who approached nervously. Jessica extended her hand, but Michael greeted her formally, studying her with an analytical gaze. "And this is Lily," Ryan continued, picking up the girl. Lily looked at Michael with curiosity, without intimidation. "Are you Uncle Ryan's grandpa?" she asked directly. Michael was surprised by the question. "I'm his father," he replied. "Then you're my grandpa too," Lily concluded with the simple logic of children. "I made a drawing for you." She showed the colorful paper where she had drawn 4 figures, herself, Jessica, Ryan, and a tall man with a tie. Michael took the drawing, studying it. "Thank you," he said, and Ryan noticed that his voice was a little softer. "You're welcome, Grandpa." You can put it on your refrigerator like Uncle Ryan does with mine. Michael looked at Ryan, who smiled shyly. You put her drawings on the refrigerator? All of them, Ryan replied. Want to see? He led his father to the kitchen, where dozens of colorful drawings covered the refrigerator and walls. Michael observed each one, seeing how Ryan appeared in all of them, always smiling, always hugging. She draws you in all of them, he observed. Because he's my dad, Lily said, appearing in the kitchen. Even though I wasn't born from him, he's my dad because he chose to stay. Michael looked at the girl, then at Ryan. Chose to stay? He repeated. Yes, Lily replied. A real daddy is someone who chooses to stay and give hugs. Isn't that right, Uncle Ryan? Ryan nodded, moved. That's right, Princess. Michael observed the interaction between them, seeing the genuine love that existed there. During dinner, he began to understand why Ryan had chosen that life. The dinner went surprisingly smoothly. Jessica had prepared a simple but tasty meal, grilled fish with coconut rice, breadcrumbs, and a tropical fruit salad. Michael, who was accustomed to sophisticated dishes, seemed to genuinely appreciate the home-cooked food. Lily, without any shyness, told stories about school, showed her favorite toys, and explained in detail each drawing she had made. Grandpa, do you know how to make paper airplanes? Lily asked, climbing onto the chair next to Michael. It's been a long time since I made one, he replied, but accepted the paper she offered him. His hands, accustomed to signing million-dollar contracts, moved awkwardly to form a simple airplane. When he finished, Lily applauded as if he had created a work of art. Now let's see which one flies farther, yours or mine, she said, running to the living room. Michael looked at Ryan, who smiled proudly. She's intense, Michael commented. She's authentic, Ryan corrected. She says what she thinks, shows what she feels, loves without reservations. I've learned more about being human from her than in all my years of adult life. Jessica observed the interaction between father and son, noticing how Lily's presence was melting the barriers Michael had built. The girl had the gift of making any situation lighter, more real. When she came running back, took Michael's hand, and pulled him to play, he didn't resist. Grandpa, did you know that Uncle Ryan is the best dad in the world? Lily said as they tested the paper airplanes. He knows how to braid hair, how to tell stories, how to make hot chocolate, and he never yells at me when I make a mess. Michael looked at Ryan, who was collecting plates with Jessica. He's a good father? The best, Lily replied without hesitation. He hugs me every day, takes me to school, helps me with homework, and he makes Mommy smile a lot. Michael felt something tighten in his chest. And do you love him very much? I love him more than chocolate, Lily replied, making Michael smile. For the first time that night. Later, when Lily was put to bed, Michael offered to read her a story. Would you like that? He asked hesitantly. Yes, but you have to do different voices for each character, like Uncle Ryan does, she instructed. Michael tried to follow the directions, creating funny voices that made Lily laugh until she became drowsy. Grandpa, will you come back tomorrow? She asked as he covered her with the sheet. Would you like me to come back? Michael asked, surprised by his own question. Yes, because now you're part of our family, and family always comes back. The simplicity of the answer touched Michael deeply. When they returned to the living room, Jessica was organizing some craft pieces. Michael approached, observing the detailed work. Did you make all this? He asked. Yes, Jessica replied shyly. It's nothing sophisticated, but it's made. With care. Michael picked up a delicate bracelet, admiring the technique. It's very beautiful. You have talent. Thank you, Jessica said, surprised by the compliment. Ryan told me you studied fine arts. Jessica nodded. Yes, but I had to stop when Lily was born. Now crafts allow me to be creative and still support my daughter. Michael was silent for a moment. Have you ever thought about exhibiting your work in galleries? Me? Jessica laughed. My work is too simple for galleries. They're just pieces for tourists. Michael interrupted her. Don't underestimate your talent. I know people in the art world. Perhaps we could organize an exhibition. Jessica looked at Ryan, who smiled encouragingly. "You would do that?" "I would," Michael replied. "Anyone important to my son is important to me." The phrase marked a turning point in the evening. Ryan approached his father, touching his arm. "Dad, does this mean you accept our family?" Michael looked around the small apartment. The drawings on the walls, the toys scattered about, the cozy simplicity of everything. "Ryan, I confess I came here with prejudices. I thought you were making a mistake." He paused. "But seeing you together, seeing how Lily loves you, how Jessica cares for you, I understood something that took me years to learn." "What did you understand?" Ryan asked, curious. "That success isn't measured by the size of the house or the bank account. It's measured by the amount of love you have in your life." Michael looked at Jessica. "And you have a lot of love here." Michael's words moved everyone. Jessica felt tears in her eyes, and Ryan approached his father, hugging him for the first time in years. "Thank you, Dad. Thank you for understanding." Michael returned the hug, feeling a closeness with his son that he hadn't experienced in decades. "I want to be part of your lives," Michael said. "I want to get to know Lily better. I want to help Jessica with her art. I want to learn how to be a grandfather if you'll let me." Jessica approached, moved. "Of course we will. Lily would love to have a grandfather." "And I'd like to invite you to dinner at my house next weekend," Michael continued. "I want you to know my world too. I want the important people in my life, to meet the important people in Ryan's life." Ryan smiled, feeling that he was finally uniting the two parts of his life. 2 weeks later, the family had found a new balance. Michael visited regularly, bringing simple gifts for Lily and talking with Jessica about art. He had organized a small exhibition of her work in a local gallery, and the sales had exceeded all expectations. "Do you have regrets?" Jessica asked. One morning, watching Ryan prepare coffee while Lily drew at the kitchen table. "About leaving your previous life?" Ryan stopped what he was doing and looked at her. "Jessica, I didn't leave my previous life. I found my true life." "But you lost so many things," Jessica insisted. "Your luxurious apartment, your freedom, your routine." Ryan approached her, taking her hands. "Do you know what I gained? Waking up every day to laughter, having someone waiting for me to come home, having reasons to smile beyond closing deals." He looked at Lily. "Having a daughter who loves me unconditionally." "And you don't miss anything?" Jessica asked, still insecure. "I miss time," Ryan replied. "I miss having more hours in the day to spend with you. I miss having started this life earlier." He kissed her softly. "Jessica, you've given me everything I always wanted and never knew I needed." That afternoon, when they were in the square selling crafts, Lily asked a question that surprised everyone. "Uncle Ryan, when are you going to ask Mommy to marry you?" Ryan almost choked on the water he was drinking. "Lily!" Jessica exclaimed, blushing. "It's an important question," the girl defended. "All my friends want to know when we're going to be a real family." "We already are a real family," Ryan said, kneeling to her height. "But—" He looked at Jessica, who was watching him with curiosity. "If your mommy is willing, I'd love to make it official." Jessica felt her heart race. "Ryan, are you sure?" "I've never been so sure of anything in my life," he replied, still kneeling. "Jessica, will you marry me? Not because I have money, not because I can give you a better life, but because I love you, because I love Lily, because I can't imagine my life without you two." Jessica looked at Ryan, seeing the sincerity in his eyes, then looked at Lily, who was practically bouncing with excitement. "Yes," she answered, smiling through tears. "I want to marry you." Lily applauded, shouting, "Now I'm going to have a real dad." The people in the EEO square stopped to applaud, transforming that intimate moment into a collective celebration. Ryan kissed Jessica, then hugged Lily, and the three stayed there, embracing, knowing that this was the beginning of a new stage in the family they had built together. 6 months later, the wedding took place in the very square where it had all begun. It was a simple ceremony but full of meaning. Michael was present, proud of his son and the new family he had gained. Lily was the flower girl, carrying the rings in a box. She had decorated herself. Do you remember the first day we met? Jessica asked during the celebration, as they danced to the sound of a local band. How could I forget? Ryan replied. A little girl asked for a hug and changed my life forever. They looked at Lily, who was dancing with Michael, both laughing at something she had told him. Do you think she always knew? Jessica asked. Knew what? That you were exactly what our family needed. Ryan smiled. I think children have a wisdom that we adults have lost. She saw in me what I couldn't see in myself, the capacity to love unconditionally. That night, when they put Lily to bed, now officially his adopted daughter, she asked a question that moved them. Daddy, do you remember when I asked for a hug that first night? Ryan nodded. I knew you would stay, she said. How did... You know, he asked. Because your eyes sparkled when you hugged me, and sparkling eyes belong to people who know how to truly love. Ryan kissed her on the forehead, tucking her under the sheet. Thank you, my princess. Thank you for teaching me that love doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be true. Lily smiled, hugging her teddy bear. Good night, Daddy. Dream. About our family. When they left the room, Jessica and Ryan hugged in the small living room they now called home. Do you regret anything? She asked, a question that had become a ritual between them. Only that it took me so long to find you, he replied, as always. They looked at the refrigerator, now covered not only with Lily's drawings, but also with family photos, wedding invitations, mementos of special moments. Remember when you said your house was becoming a museum of children's art? Jessica asked. Now it's become a museum of family memories. And I couldn't be happier, Ryan replied, kissing his wife. Do you know what the greatest gift you've given me? Jessica shook her head. You taught me that a man isn't measured by what he builds or what he earns. He's measured by the love he's capable of giving and receiving. That night, Ryan fell asleep thinking of the lonely boy he once was, waiting for hugs that never came. And he woke up thinking of the man he had become, surrounded by hugs that never lacked. He had learned that sometimes life gives us exactly what we need at the moment we need it most, even if we don't know we need it. Lily, now 6 years old, still drew families, but now they were complete families with 4 figures, herself, Jessica, Ryan, and Grandpa Michael. And in all the drawings there was a constant. All the figures were hugging, reminding that love doesn't need to be complicated. It just needs to be true, constant, and freely given. The hug that began as a simple request from a child transformed into the foundation of a family that proved that true love doesn't come from where you were born, but from where you choose to stay. And Ryan chose to stay forever, in the place where hugs weren't rushed, where love lived in the heart, and where a family is built not with money, but with presence, patience, and care. Dear listeners, we hope that the story of Ryan, Jessica, and Lily has deeply touched your hearts. This narrative reminds us that true love can be found in the simplest places, and that a family isn't defined by blood ties, but by bonds of choice and dedication. If this story moved you as much as it moved us, don't forget to subscribe to our channel by clicking the button that appears here on your left. Also, leave your like on the video to help us reach more people with stories that transform and inspire. Every day we bring unique narratives that explore the deepest feelings of the human experience. Don't miss our